Welcome back. This is the Jim Bohannon Show. We're talking with Pat Brown. She's the founder of the Pat Brown Profiling Agency. They're online at patbrownprofiling.com. And for those who haven't heard your previous appearances on this and many other programs, what is it that you do?
Well, my main job is to do criminal profiling, which I look at cold cases and do crime reconstruction and try to determine what might have happened, and that's what the police can use as a lead or to start looking in a certain direction to try to get a focus on a case. And, of course, I do a lot of television, which is commentary and not profiling, but I enjoy that as well because it's a good educational route.
I'm wondering, since apparently a lot of this focus is based in Britain, we tend to think, I guess, of the British as almost just, quote, us. Well, we have a common language and we have two free societies, but there are differences, significant differences. And I understand that the libel laws may be one area where there are differences.
Extremely. They're extremely vicious right now in Britain, which is why there's been pretty much a shutdown of a lot of the media, especially in this case. And I've had a lot of letters coming in from people living in UK, and they're like, please speak out, because we can't speak out any longer in Britain. It's just not allowed. And they're very frustrated with the fact that they don't have that freedom. I think there's something recently afoot where they're trying to ease up on that because it's getting to be like a totalitarian society where you can't say anything. And while it's true we may be uncomfortable with what somebody says about us, and certainly I know because I've been on the receiving end of all kinds of interesting commentary, and as long as it's opinion, I have to live with it. I think it's people's right to speak their opinion. But when you shut down a society and say you can no longer say anything that somebody doesn't like, you got a problem.
What do you put forward in the profile of the disappearance of Madeleine McCann? What conclusions do you reach?
Well, again, it's a theory, so I always have to start with that. So and
I understand you're not at all shy about pointing that out. It is a theory.
I have to point that out, and it really is.
I mean, you weren't shy about doing it before you had to point it out, right? I mean,
exactly.
Isn't that true? Yeah.
Well, the point being that it is a theory. It is my theory. It doesn't mean it's a fact. Doesn't mean it is true. It doesn't mean this is what happened. It's a theory of what could have happened. And one of the most important thing to be pointed out right away is that there is no evidence of an abduction. And that's where the whole thing started to go wrong in people's minds, that maybe we're not getting the straight story here. Right after Madeleine went missing, Kate and Jerry called over to England. Well, actually, Jerry did, and he told a number of relatives that Madeleine had been abducted, and somebody had jimmied the shutters of the window, essentially crawling in and taking Madeleine away. Well, it turned out there was no evidence of anybody coming in that window. And I've always wondered, would the McCanns say that the police did a poor job on this and they're lying about this? But when Kate wrote her book, she admitted there was no evidence of anybody coming through that window.
Then how do they propose that the break-in occurred?
Well, now kind of what they've set up is every day of the week, they said they lock the doors to that apartment. Now, wouldn't you, if your apartment, you're in a strange country, and you have an apartment that's on a corner.
Right.
There's a road going right behind it, and there's a car parked behind it. I don't think you would leave the doors unlocked. It's bad enough that you leave 3 children alone, so most of us wouldn't do that either.
Right.
But would you leave your 3 children alone and leave the doors unlocked so anybody could just come in?
Don't think so.
We wouldn't think so. Well, neither did the McCanns, so for 4 days they locked the doors. The 5th day comes along, and they say they left the sliding door open in the back so that somebody could go check on their children when they were busy. And that's never been done before. So suddenly on the last day, supposedly, somebody else checks on their child, and the door is left open. So you have to wonder, is that really what happened, or was the place really locked? Because if it was locked down, then Madeleine was not abducted. Something happened to her in the apartment, an accident that was then covered up. So you have to have a way for her to get out of that apartment, so you have to have an open door.
What have the authorities had to say? Obviously, they have long since investigated this ad infinitum.
Yes, Detective Amaral believed, he was the one that believed strongly that Madeleine McCann died in the apartment. They brought in dogs. One dog identified decomposition behind the sofa, which is where Amaral believes Madeleine died. The other dog found blood and these are sniffer dogs, so this is not something you can see, found blood, the same location. And so Amaral believed that Madeleine had an accident while they were out at the restaurant. He believes to this day that they were responsible for what happened to their daughter. And that's why he wrote the book, which got, they sued him for.
Mm-hmm. But they're not suing you.
Not
yet.
That I know of.
Not that you know of.
I have not received a cease and desist letter, nor has anybody approached me on that.
Do you think that you have had a chip on your shoulder, that you've just had it in for
the
Mrs.
McCanns?
McCann? Yeah, I mean, is the gist of this email that was gratuitously dropped on me.
Right. I have a thing for justice. I have a thing for the truth, and as a profiler, I'm very bugged by things when I say, wait a minute, something's fishy about this. Something seems off here. It seems like the truth is not coming out. I have spoken up very strongly in certain crimes where I believe that we're not getting the full story. And this was one of them. And because of the McCanns had a very high profile, they did a lot of media appearances, and every time I saw them, things rang wrong again. I'm thinking, why are you saying that? Why are you doing that? So I think if they hadn't been in the media so much, and I hadn't been so aware of what they were saying, I wouldn't have commented so often. So they made themselves, they put themselves out there, and when you do, just like me, I'm going to get people who have things to say about me.
Well, unfortunately, I guess it sort of goes with the nature of your work that if you don't like Pat Brown, get in line.
Yeah, well, pretty much.
How many? I mean, there have to be, just by the nature of what you've done, a lot of folks who don't think kindly of you.
Well, what will happen is when you're outspoken, and I've never been accused of not being outspoken.
That's true.
There are some people who go on television, for example, and talk about a case, and they'll be very careful about, well, this could have happened or that could have happened. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. And you think, well, what do you think? Well, when I talk about a case, I'm pretty blunt about what I think. Here's what the evidence here is, and here's what I think happened.
Pat Brown, our guest, the founder of the Pat Brown Profiling Agency, online at patbrownprofiling.com. Her profile of the disappearance of Madeleine McCann is available at Barnes & Noble, bn.com, and also at Smashwords.